So guys, the day has finally come and I'm here at Praga HQ with the guys from Signs and Graphics who are wrapping our brand new Praga R1 behind me. I'm so excited, to be honest. I've been absolutely dying to see this all happen in 3D. It's funny because this is all taking place on Trans Day of Visibility as well, which seems quite apt because I think this car is going to look highly visible on the Brit Car Endurance Championship grid in about 4 weeks' time. Before we get too into it, I want to talk to you a bit about how this all came about in the first place. Now, before we go any further, I just need to say a huge thank you to Praga for giving me the freedom to come up with the design that's going on the R1. Jack, Fabi and I are going to race in this season's Brit Car Endurance Championship. It's a huge year for Praga. There are going to be something like 12 or more R1s all racing together, neck and neck in their own grid. Obviously, I've not seen the designs of all the other cars, but nonetheless, I thought we need a car that's going to look distinctive, a design that's going to stand out, that's going to show all the best features of the R1, and just something that looks a bit individual too. It felt like quite a big responsibility, but also a really fun challenge. Jack and I really love the design and I hope you guys love it. So I want to talk you through a bit of the design process and what goes into creating a livery for a race car. Over the years, I've designed liveries for quite a lot of cars that I've raced. Cars like the Formula Renault, which was my last car that I actually owned and ran and raced myself. I came up with quite a simple design for that car. Of course, it's a French car and I was racing in France, so I just put the tricolor and ran those colours through it, which looked pretty mega. Since then, I've done the livery for the Ginetta GT5 that I raced, a friend's Clio Cup car, a Formula 4 car, GT cars, various cars that I've raced in esports. Quite a lot of cars really. It helps having a graphic design degree because for one, it gives me a good grounding in software like Photoshop and Illustrator and just a good understanding of simple elements of working with colour and so on and so on. One of the first things I do when designing a livery is go straight onto Google Image and look at other examples that people have come up with, see what works, what doesn't work, maybe pick out how people have used the lines of the car. I like to use the lines if I can, but depending on the car, sometimes I go a bit off-piste and tend to carve up the shape. Again, this can be driven by other factors really, and it just depends on what you're designing for. But I think as a starting point, it's always good to just look at what shapes do and don't work on that car. If anything, it saves you time going down a blind alley. One of the next things to consider is what logos are going on the car. What shape are they? What colour are they? How big do they need to be? Do you have a title sponsor? In which case, is that going to be the determining factor in the overall colour scheme of the car? Another consideration when you're racing in endurance is that you'll probably have a few sponsors yourself and then for your teammate as well. So you can end up quite quickly with a lot of logos to try and fit on a car. And certainly with something like the Praga R1, it doesn't have a huge amount of surface area, unlike say a saloon car or something like that. One of the first things that I always do is try to think where are the main areas you can put logos and how can you therefore come up with lines that will work with the car but will also leave enough good spaces on the car without it all looking a bit crammed in and a bit squashed. Between Jack and I, we've got quite a few sponsors to try and fit on the car. To give you an idea, there's NGK Spark Plugs, who I've worked with for over 5 years now. There's Facial Team, who I'm really proud to work with and also feature on my race helmet behind me. Then there's Percy Martin Machine Tools, where I used to work. They're celebrating 100 years in business this year and I'm very proud because Percy was my great-grandfather who founded the business in 1921. So it's a really big deal to have them on the car this year. I recently announced Heycar as a brand new sponsor for 2021. Heycar are really keen to raise the bar in the automotive and tech industry, and it's great to see their branding on the front of the car. And just in the last few weeks, I've agreed a partnership with Awesome Products, who are involved in data privacy. So it's really cool to have them joining the team for Britcar this season. Then we have Oakwood Cooperage, one of Jack's sponsors, who produce wooden barrels for the whiskey industry, and this is all done in a very traditional way that people have been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years. You can well imagine that looking at all those organisations and their logos and all the colours involved, there's quite a lot to try and integrate. If you have a title sponsor who says, well, the car has to be blue and white, for example, it makes things fairly straightforward because you've got a base colour that you're going to start with. The first thing I do when I come to start drawing on the car is to generally start with the side profile profile. I draw around the car and I almost kind of create like a kind of collage, like I cut out various different shapes. And what I try to do is create a body colour in one colour that is separate to all the ancillary parts of the car, like the windscreen and the wheels and the wing mirrors. So I can very easily just chop up parts of this shape and create it in different colours. And I can quickly take bits away, add bits on, and start to look at what works where, what flows through the car, where I can potentially break up a line and it's going to look quite dynamic, or conversely, something that you might try that you think, oh, this is going to look really good, but then quickly you realise, no, it doesn't really flow or it doesn't really work. Another consideration, which might sound like a small thing, but is actually really, really practical, is coming up with a design that's relatively easy to apply. And by that I mean that if you have an incident or a scrape or a bit of contact with another car, that if you need to suddenly wrap another panel or a few panels on the car, it's not going to be an absolute nightmare. So you can hopefully appreciate that there is a lot that goes into the thought process of creating a livery when you're trying to work with all these different elements and get everything to work together. Well guys, as they say in Hollywood, that's a wrap. Signs and Graphics have done an absolutely amazing job and the car looks so good. Jack, doesn't it look good?
That was amazing.
Just seeing it come to life today in 3D after having seen it on the computer for so many months, it's been really, really fun. Now, I'm sorry to do this to you folks, but I couldn't let it slip. It is April Fool's Day today. I'm not going to completely pull the wool over your eyes because you've seen quite a bit of the car, but I want to release it fully in the paddock next week at Anglesey, where we're going to be testing for 3 days. So tune in next Thursday and you will get to see the car, me and Jack in our race suits, everything in a paddock, car going around the circuit, the whole lot. Believe me, it'll be worth the wait. See you there.